Welcome back, folks. On today's video, we're going to be diving in talking about 3 baits that are going to be perfect for that beginner that's looking to catch their first fish and keep catching fish after that. These are going to be super easy to fish. They're not going to be complicated, and they're going to be effective pretty much from springtime through the fall. Wintertime, some of these might work, but these are going to be super effective during the bulk of the fishing season, and hopefully it's going to catch you some bass in the future. Guys, if you like this kind of content, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not a member already, and let's get going. Okay, the very first bait that we're going to talk about is the Texas rig. And mainly, we're going to be talking about Senkos or any type of creature bait or crawfish. So the reason that I love the Senko for a Texas rig is it's just simple to fish. There's no technical difficulty that goes into this. There's no crazy style of retrieve that you have to do. Guys, you just cast it out, you let it sit there for a second, you might twitch the rod tip a little bit, you might drag it across the bottom just a little. That's pretty much it. That is going to catch you fish. That's all you have to do. Cast it out. All you have to do is maybe drag it up just a little bit, reel up your slack, drag it up, reel up your slack. That is it. Super easy to fish. Guys, if you're looking to pick up some soft plastics, let's say at Walmart, they're going to have these Yum 5-inch Senkos, because I really found that the ones with the chartreuse tail are really effective. Or you can just go with straight green pumpkin, but you can't go wrong with anything with green pumpkin. Little crawls made by Zoom are also going to be super effective. Guys, please check out how to rig a Texas rig if you've never done that before. That's going to be kind of the basis of what you're going to have to learn how to do, is effectively rig this bait up. But once you get the rigging down on this, you're going to be able to rig any type of soft plastic on a Texas rig. It's very, very versatile. Could be one of the most versatile types of baits of all time. All right, so what you're going to need for this rig is some type of extra wide gap hook. You could look for these at Walmart. Usually I stick around a 4/0 size. So right there you can see the 4 and the 0, 4/0. And this bulk pack comes in at like $2 or $3. Really, really cheap. But it's going to give you enough hooks. If you get hung up and things like that, you're still going to have quite a few left. But you're going to need some of these. And also, I suggest getting some type of bullet weight. And these also can be found at Walmart. And these are painted black, so that's also going to blend in very well with your bait. And it's not going to stand out like just our typical lead weight would. But if you can only find the lead weights, they're going to get the job done too. You can catch fish all day on those as well. So that weight is going to get the bait down in the water column. So that's kind of where we're basing all this stuff off today. We're going to be fishing the bottom typically with this bait. So if the fish are super low in that water column, this bait is going to get down in front of their face and hopefully entice them to bite that thing. So the weight's going to get it down. These extra wide gap hooks are going to allow us to effectively fish this bait, and then pick you up a bunch of soft plastics, and that's going to get the job done. This right here is my Senko box. Also, I got some creature baits kind of thrown in here, but super effective, guys. I don't know if there's another bait out there that's more simple than the Texas rig. So learn how to Texas rig. It's going to catch you more bass, and you're going to become a more effective angler, especially when you're starting out. It's going to be able to build that confidence and allow you to keep fishing with the confidence that you can catch fish. This was probably my first confidence bait when it came to catching largemouth bass. So one of those tips is to follow suit and learn how to fish that, and it isn't complicated. So that is number 1 on the list. Using that Texas rig, it's going to catch you more fish. Number 2 on the list is another super easy. If you're fishing from the bank, it's going to be effective. If you're fishing off a boat, it's going to be effective, just like the Texas rig. And that is using, all right guys, number 2 on the list of easiest baits for beginners to fish is going to be the spinner bait. And you don't have to get fancy with the spinner baits. You can go to Walmart and pick up those $1 spinner baits on the bottom shelf, and they are going to get the job done. This right here is going to mimic a school of shad going through the water. It's going to mimic that bait fish that we're trying to imitate. And they just catch fish, and they're super easy to fish. Literally, you cast it out and you just reel this thing back. And you can get a little bit more technical with it. You can add in some pauses to that. Like if you think that there's a fish sitting right behind this log and you cast it out and you're going by that log and you want to pause it right where you think that fish is to give it a little bit more time to kind of react to it, then do that. Just pause it, twitch it, whatever, and then keep reeling that thing back in. Super effective, super easy. You can fish these from the bank. They're not going to get hung up easy. Just like that Senko or that Texas rig, it's not going to get hung up easy. You're going to be able to fish it pretty much weedless, and it's going to work throughout pretty much the bulk of the fishing season. So super effective bait there. The blades here are going to give off a lot of flash, and the style I have right here, these are called willow blades. They also have big Colorado blades that are more circular. I don't think I have one out here today, but they're going to be more circular. They're going to put off more vibration and not as much flash. And they're also going to create more sound in the water. So if you're fishing dirty water, you want more of a Colorado blade. It's going to put off a little bit more vibration. It's going to key in those fish a little bit more on that bait because they can't see it as well. So that's why you want those big blades. But these willow blades are going to be really effective in stained or clearer water because it's going to put off a lot of flash and it's not going to put off as much vibration. So it's going to be a little bit more natural and it's going to match perfectly with this white. So color selection, I usually stick with only just a couple, and that is mainly white. 90% of the time I'm going to be fishing a white. And then the other part of the time I'm going to be fishing this sexy shad color, which also pretty much shows up white to the fish. Largemouth bass actually see chartreuse as a white color. Their eyes are a lot different than a human's eyes, but they see that in a white color. There's a bunch of tests done out there, but super effective bait. This right here is going to come through the water, and the way the hooks are, they're not going to get hung up on much. You can fish this pretty much through about anything. That's why if you're a bank angler, this is really going to be effective bait for you. You're not going to be getting snagged up on a lot of stuff, and it's going to be super easy to fish. So you might be asking yourself what this is. I strongly suggest you go and pick up a set of trailer hooks. You can also find these at Walmart. They might be a little bit harder to find. You're going to have to dig to find these. But what that is, it has a little piece of rubber that when you put this on the hook, you just run that straight through that rubber. That is going to retain that trailer hook on the main hook of this spinnerbait here. And what this is going to allow you to do, what happens when a bass comes up to strike at this, a lot of times they will miss the hook. They'll snap right behind it here and they'll miss the whole hook. A lot of times maybe they'll strike at the skirt, or maybe they'll strike at these blades that are spinning back here. So you can see how it would be easy for a bass to miss this main hook here. So that's why we want to put this trailer hook on. And now you can see that's pretty much in line with these blades that are going to be spinning, and they're going to get hooked up. So your hookup ratio on your catches are going to be a lot better if you put a trailer hook on. Yeah, this is going to get you snagged up just a little bit more. It typically not too much, because the way that sits, it's going to still ride across that cover. But this is going to enhance your hookup ratio tremendously. So I strongly suggest trailer hooks. Guys, that is all I'm going to talk about with spinnerbaits. But fish a spinnerbait this year, and you're going to be golden. It's going to catch you a lot of bass, and if it might catch you your first bass. So it's going to make you a better angler, especially if you're a beginner. This is going to be one of those confidence building baits. Strongly suggest you fish this. Go get yourself some spinnerbaits. Try them this year. Okay, the last bait that I have on the list for top 3 beginner baits that are going to get you bass this year is the crankbait. Guys, these crankbaits I have right here are a little bit large. I brought these out just for, visual purposes for the video. But these are square bill crankbaits. And I'm not going to get too hung up on the square bill if we're going to do deep diving crankbaits. But a crankbait is super effective year round. You can even fish these during the wintertime and they're going to catch you fish. But these are probably moving in kind of to the intermediate level baits. But the reason I kept it on this list is because they just catch fish and they're not too hard to actually use. If you stick with the bare basics of this, it's kind of like that spinnerbait. You cast it out and you just reel it back in. You don't have to get fancy with it. You can add in some of those twitches, some pauses, and that is going to get the job done. That's all you have to do. And don't get too fancy with it. But what makes a square bill crankbait so effective and so easy to use versus, let's say, a deep diving crankbait is we're really focusing on using this bill to actually deflect off of cover. So let's say you're only fishing in 3 to 5 feet of water, which is typically where this square bill is going to run. We want this to make contact with the bottom just because it's going to stir up that sediment. It's going to cause a more erratic action of the bait because this is going to be deflecting off of rocks. It's going to be deflecting off of logs. And that is going to key in those bass on that erratic motion. They see pretty much a dying bait fish is what it seems in their eyes. And they see an easy target. So they're going to come ambush that prey, and they're going to have a nice high protein food source right here with this big shad. So how you fish it is you cast it out and you just want to hit the bottom with it. Your nice easy retrieve. A gear ratio I would suggest for this is a 7:1 gear ratio or the high 6s, and you're just going to be able to easily reel that in nice and smooth. You're not going to want to go too fast with it, but just a nice and smooth retrieve to where you see this bait wobbling back and forth in the water. And depending on what kind you have, it's going to have more of a wobble than others. Usually during the spring and the fall, you want more of a tight wobble. And then during the summer, a more side-to-side wobble is going to be kind of the key that you're looking for there. But the whole reason you're wanting to fish this is to maintain contact with the bottom. So if you're not hitting the bottom with your bait, you're going to want to move into a more deep diving crankbait to actually fit that application so you can actually get down in the bottom for it. But that erratic motion is going to catch you fish, and it's going to be super effective for you. These big treble hooks will get hung up. So if you're fishing from the bank, do not use a square bill crankbait. Do not use a crankbait at all. Rely on the spinnerbait to act as your bait fish and your shad. Use this if you're fishing off of a boat, kayak, where you're able to go retrieve this bait if you were to get hung up on the bottom, because these square bills can get kind of pricey, so you don't want to be wasting your money getting snagged up all the time. But they will get hung up, so definitely try to fish these where you're not getting hung up as much in that thick cover. So if you're on the edge of a bank line where it looks like it's pretty clear, but you have some rocks and stuff on the bottom that you can beat these things off of, it would be an awesome spot to actually fish these. But if you do see a log that's in the water and you're reeling back and you're like, oh snap, it's going to get hung up on that log, all you have to do, the beauty of a crankbait is they float. So right before it hits that log, you just stop reeling and that bait is going to float back up to the top, and then you can slowly reel it across the log and then start your normal retrieve, and it's going to dive back down in the water column there, and hopefully you're going to get hooked up on a big bass. But for color selection, once again, I keep it very simple. Sexy shad, pretty much year round. You can also go with a chartreuse, or you can move into more like a reddish, orangish color if you're trying to imitate a crawfish or a crayfish that is molting, let's say in the spring and maybe the late fall. So you can use those if you want to, but you can just use these too, because it's imitating different types of forage depending on what type of body of water you're kind of fishing on. So guys, that is the third one, a square bill crankbait. It's going to be awesome for you. This is more of an intermediate bait because you're going to have to worry about getting hung up a little bit more. So like we said, don't use this off of the bank because it's just the kind of the wrong bait to use and the wrong retrieve if you're fishing from the bank. But it's going to catch you bass, guys. Hopefully you like these 3 different baits that beginners can use to get on bass, maybe catch that first bass, and maybe start building some confidence with using these baits. And then you can kind of build your toolbox up and get some more types of baits in your toolbox. That way you can get out there and fish more effectively each and every day and become the best angler you can. All right, guys, hope you liked this video. If you did, hit that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you did like this and you want more content like this. We're going to be focusing a lot on building up your beginner toolbox to become that better angler. So we're going to be talking about rod selections. We're going to be talking about different types of retrieves. We're going to be talking about all that stuff that is going to make you a better beginner angler to get you started off on the right foot. All right, guys, I'll catch you in those next videos. I hope you like this, and I'll see you later.